Welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from the name of the video, we have some new handguards from Midwest Industries to go over. It's their new combat line. They have several different ones that are going to kind of fall into that category. The previous generation, if you look online or know anything about Midwest, was the Gen 3s. This is sort of, I guess, their Gen 4, but sort of in the combat line as they're calling it. And the same thing here with these sights. This is a new sights from Midwest Industries. Again, they're combat rifle sights. Very cool, very small, low profile. All metal sights, and what we're going to do today is get into the details of the different handguards, get into the details of the sights, discuss the features, pros and cons of each, and then go over them, what I think of them overall at the end. But first we're going to let the dogs take a look at it and then come back in, get into the handguards. We'll get into the handguards first. They all come in different lengths, varying from 7 inches on up, but all four that we have are going to be 12.625 inches. And yes, that's an oddly specific number. The reason for that is that length will work with a front sight block still being in place on a rifle length gas system. But of course, if you're running a carbine length gas system or a mid length gas system, it will work just fine as well. And it'll give you some extra hand rail space out in front of the gas block. So the one we have here is going to be the combat handguard, and all of them are going to come basically with the same stuff that you see here. You're going to have an installation tool. This works here with the barrel nut. Very simple to install. There's no timing required, so that is nice. I have a video on how to install Midwest Industries handguards. It's going to be pretty darn similar. They changed it up a touch, but if you guys are looking for it, that will really walk you through the entire process. But here we have our barrel nut. Very simple thing like we talked about. It's going to come with a section of 1913 rail that will interface with the M-lock slots here. It's polymer, and you don't have to use it if you don't want, of course, but it does come with it. This little retainer here and these 2 screws. So basically how it works is once you thread this down onto your actual receiver, it will kind of look like that. And then you can see these 2 screws, screw holes there on the bottom. And note that this is made out of 6061 aluminum. That's going to be the case for all 4 handguards. Type 3 hard anodized, as you guys can see here. But we also have these steel helicoils in there, which is what these steel screws are going to go into. So steel on steel, a very good idea, very strong as well. Basically, this piece here is going to go up into your actual rail, rather, just like so, and it's going to prevent the actual barrel nut from moving forward when these screws are in place, because if you look here, when these screws go through, they're going to lock it into that handguard, and this piece also locks it into your steel barrel nut. So it's a very secure system, and it's just going to go down just like that, like so. Very simple, very easy to install. Again, no timing required, none of that, and it's not going anywhere. Now all of them are going to have some sort of these 2 tabs as well. That's going to interface with your upper receiver, preventing any left and right motion, and then this little tab here on the bottom, of course, is going to prevent it from going forward. Getting into a little bit more detail on the combat version here, you can see that we do have 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions for the M-lock, as well as the intermediate positions. So there's 7 different positions all the way around in terms of a clock where you could actually mount up accessories on there. So you don't need offset mounts if you want your lights and stuff to be really snug in there. But of course, if you have them, you can still use them. So that kind of is cool. It's very versatile in that regard. This version here, the 12.625 inch, is going to weigh right in at 10.1 ounces, as you guys can see on my scale. That includes the actual barrel nut and the hardware that goes with it. So still very, very lightweight. We have continuous T-slots there on the top, 1913, and those are going to be your strongest mounting point. M-lock's a very, very strong system for sure, without question. However, in my opinion, 1913 rail is still a little bit stronger and a little bit better in terms of return to zero. So if you're going to mount a laser or something like that, I would probably recommend putting it here. Of course, you could put it on the side, absolutely, and roll with it and be just fine, but that's why you have that 1913 on top, just for that extra rigidity. And you can see we do have our quick detach sling points here at the rear. They are anti-rotational, so you're not going to have your sling just spinning around on you. And then we have these little vent holes on top, and that's just to keep it cool because, of course, where that gas block is a very hot area on AR-15s when you start running multiple mags through them. On that note, the interior dimension here, I believe, is 1.3 inches and then 1.5 inches on the outer diameter. So what that means is it's very comfortable, and a lot of guys are really going to like it in terms of ergonomics. I tend to agree with that. The downside of it, from that regard, is that you're also closer to the barrel, of course, so when the barrel starts to heat up, you're generally going to feel it a little bit more than you would if you had larger, sort of a little bit further away handguards. So pros and cons there, but I think a lot of people are definitely going to like this one. The next model we're going to talk about is going to be the ultra lightweight version that you guys see here. It has a lot of the same features as the combat that you just saw, but has some enhancements for weight. So this one here, even at 12.65 inches with the hardware, weighs 7.9 ounces. I mean, that's just crazy. Super, super lightweight. It's almost comically so. We have the M-LOK slots at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. On the intermediate positions, we have these larger cutouts. Of course, that's to save weight, so that way it's going to be a little bit lighter weight there on those edges. Same thing here on top. You're going to see the same holes just to vent the heat. However, on top we don't have continuous 1913. We have these M-LOK slots here in the middle, so if you wanted to mount a 1913 rail there, you certainly could, but we have 1913 here at the back, basically where it meets up with the receiver. One reason for that is a lot of scope mounts are going to kind of extend out, and you're going to need a little bit of space out there, so it does have that capability if you want that. And then we have the 1913 here out front for your front sight or any sort of accessories that you might want to mount there. You'll note that the 1913 sections, both up front and in the rear, are hollowed out. Again, that's a weight savings feature, I should say. And the barrel nut is titanium, as are the screws here. So that's definitely more expensive, but of course it's going to save you weight. The design is exactly the same, but definitely geared towards weight savings. I should also note that Combat has this titanium nut available as an option if you purchase direct from Midwest. The next model up is going to be the T-Series handguard. As you could probably guess from the name, it has 1913 sections all the way down, basically from where it meets back here at the receiver, all the way forward up until the end of it. On the top right and left side of it, there are continuous 1913 rails as standard. On the bottom, I hollowed it out a little bit just to save a little bit of weight and also add some cooling features in there. I do like that. The same is true there at the offset positions. You have these circles cut in there to help vent the hot air that could come out during firing, as well as just make it a little bit lighter. The same is true there on the top and the bottom with those holes cut in for ventilation. So this one here is obviously the heaviest of the crew. However, it's still not that heavy. Even with all the hardware, it comes in at 14.9 ounces. And again, this is the 12.625 inch version. So for what you get here, again, 6061 T6 aluminum, same steel barrel nut, steel screws, all of that stuff. It's pretty light for having this type of mounting capability. I think the folks that are going to look at this are going to be folks who either want sort of that retro feel, or guys who are going to mount lasers and lights and those sorts of things to it and want that absolute bomb-proof return to zero type of capability. It's just more rigid than the other ones in extreme conditions. That said, most folks will probably never see the difference between this and some of the other offerings, except for in the weight category. So it just depends what you like, what you prefer. Of course, any of your 1913 accessories, whether they be foregrips, mounts, stuff like that, will all mount on there just fine. And same thing back here on the rear, we do have two quick detach sling points that are anti-rotational. The final model we're going to go over is going to be the slimline handguards that you see here. This, again, 12.625, and you can kind of see there on the gas block, this is a mid-length gas system, sort of where it would go out. And again, this is a 16-inch barrel as well, so you can see how that looks there with that type of setup. Pretty much the same thing as the Combat handguards, with the exception of having these slots cut here in the rear, or rather in the offset positions, I should say. They're not M-LOK compatible. They're large, again, for cooling and weight savings. However, this one weighs, I believe, an ounce more than the Combat handguard, but you're going to have the M-LOK slots at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position, then continuous rail all the way down. Still a very lightweight handguard, and you guys can kind of see here with it mounted up. That's why I wanted to mount it in the video and show you guys how those tabs would work in terms of preventing any sort of rotation. This will work with any of your mil-spec handguards. Any billet ones I would probably call Midwest first to kind of see. I know the new Arrow enhanced uppers, it'll work with those as well, which I really do like those uppers a good bit, and they work with that just fine. Let me unthread this real quick to kind of show you how it all works together when it's mounted up. The screws are out, and we're just going to kind of slide it forward. You can see it's very snug and very tight, just being gently moving it out. You don't need any heat, but it is a tight fit. So that there is how it all lines up. Again, no need to index the brown nut at all. You can see it clears the gas tube just fine there. And very, very simple overall installation process, but yet very durable and rugged. It's pretty well thought out. For the weight and the strength of these, I think these are going to really be popular simply because they're just good in every one of those sort of ratings, and they're slim. People like those these days, and just easy to install, easy to take off, any of those sorts of things. Moving on to the combat sights. So they're a two-piece set. If you buy them as a set, it does come with a front sight adjustment tool. That is nice, of course. It's a metal adjustment tool, which everybody likes. I don't know how many of those I've lost in the field, so having one is always a good thing. The rear sight and the front sight, though, are available for purchase separately if you guys want to go that route. You only need one of them. I think that's probably going to be more prevalent, of course, with the rear sight. It just tends to be how it works out. With the way AR-15s are designed, it's going to give you standard AR-15 height, sight height. So in that regard, any of your optics are going to co-witness exactly how you're used to. You can see here how they lay flat. We'll mount it up on the gun here in just a second. But the front sight here, it snaps into place both in the up and down position, which is nice. There's no buttons to push or anything like that to release. So should you need to deploy them quickly, just hit them up and they will go in there just fine. We do have our steel helicoils on the bases as well that the screws are going to go into. Again, steel on steel. That's a good thing for durability and longevity, in my opinion. And they're made out of 6061 aluminum primarily. Our front sight here takes a standard A2 post, so if you guys have any like night sights or anything like that, or fiber optic front sights that you want to put in there, you certainly can do so. Adjusting it is the same as any standard front sight, so you're just going to move it up and down for your elevation changes. There is no windage available to dial in there on the front. That is going to be done here on the rear. And if you have this set up with a carbine length sight radius, you're going to get 0.65 MOA with each turn here of our windage drum. If you have it set up with a rifle length sight radius, you're going to get 0.5 MOA with each click of your windage knob. So pretty standardized in that regard. If you guys can't hear it, I'll bring it up there next to my microphone, and you guys can hear it. It's very positive when you click them into place. So the detent in there is definitely doing its job. And you guys can also see they have these little marks here that'll give you some indicator as to how far left or right you are off of the center line. Installation is pretty straightforward. You're going to put them where you want on your rifle. You can see the nice little profile that we'll get into a little bit more here in just a second. You're always going to want to push forward whenever you're mounting sights or optics or anything like that on a rifle. The reason for that, for those new to this stuff, is because the recoil will push it to that position regardless, so you want to just have it there so that way it stays and doesn't move around on you. The screws are designed to be put on with 35 inch-pounds of torque, just like that, using the Brownell's torque wrench, and you guys can see just how low those things sit. It has that little knob in there, and the reason for that is that it's so that it doesn't sort of overcompensate on the way down. It just sits like that, and it's very small, doesn't protrude a lot. We have the BCM ambidextrous charging handle here, and you guys can see that in no way would it interfere with the charging handle when it's mounted up there on the rifle. And again, it's going to be steady in the down position, but when you want it, it will click up, and then in the down, it clicks and locks into place as well. The same, of course, is true with the front sight. You guys can see there how low it lays down, and it locks in the up position. And then if you want to, again, no buttons need to be pushed. Just pop it down and it locks in the down position. One thing I didn't point out is these nice wide ears here. They're very thick, and despite that, it still is not very heavy at all. The same is true with the rear sight, and it's going to give you good protection there from any sort of dings, bumps, anything like that, either in the up and down position. And then back here, another point I didn't mention on the rear sight is that the aperture there is in between your standard large and small aperture. So if you guys are used to like carry handle sights with the night and day aperture, this one's right in between. They basically just split the difference in half, and I've shot these out to 300 yards and not had any issues at all hitting, you know, a 12-inch target. So they definitely can do the job for precision, and also it's a little bit larger if you need that speed up close and personal. At this point in the video, I'm sure some of you guys are kind of confused as to which handguard's which in terms of features and which one you might like. So I made this little graph here just to keep my own head straight as I was going through this video, and I think it'll help some of you guys as well. You guys can see the weights, the different M-lock positions if they have those, the type of barrel nut, those sorts of things, and all of them, of course, are made out of 6061 T6 aluminum. Now, price point wise, they're all pretty affordable as well. Of course, it's going to depend on the actual length for the actual cost and the actual model, but generally speaking, they're going to come in street price somewhere between 129 and 189. Of course, if you have sales codes, those sorts of things, you will find them a little bit less than that. Now, the slimline handguards are designed to be the affordable version of these handguards. So this is the combat here. Again, the slimline don't have the M-lock on the intermediate positions, and those ones are generally going to be maybe 10-ish, $15, just depending on where you look, again, less than those other ones, and they're still very feature rich, as you guys have seen. So that's pretty much it on the handguards. We will drop links down below where we can for those of you guys looking to pick one up. Now, in terms of the sights, I think they're excellent. To date, probably my favorite have been the MBUS Pros in terms of like, all metal type of folding sights. These absolutely I would put on par with those, and I don't say that lightly. Again, the MBUS Pros have been my favorite to date, and I've tried all of them. I've tried the CACs. Spikes. The spikes are good too as well. I should say the current generation. But these ones are as good as any of them. I suppose a lot of times it'll come down to individual preference, but the low profile is awesome. They definitely lock into place very with some authority is probably a better way to put it. You're not going to accidentally pop one up or pop one down. There's definitely some force required, and it's very audible and tactile when they lock into place. And again, the low profile is really nice. One thing you guys have probably seen on the channel here a million times is the Magpul MBUS 2s. They're inexpensive plastic sights. They're good for what they are. Of course, they're very inexpensive, cheap, but they're also larger. So with a lot of optics like ACOGs and stuff like that, you simply can't get the optics far enough back because there's just not enough clearance for them. With these sights, I've not found that with any optic we've had so far, whether it be the LCAN, ACOGs, low power variables, red dots, of course. There's no interference that I've found so far. So in that regard, it's definitely a big pro for a lot of guys who are looking for that feature. The Midwest sites seem to deliver on that one. The cost on those for the set is generally going to be around $150 street price. If you're buying them individually, you're going to be about $80-ish street price. Again, we'll put links down below where we can. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions about the products we talked about in today's video, by all means, you can post them down in the comment section. However, the best way to get in touch with me is over at my Facebook page. I tend to respond to everything over there and see those a little bit more than I do on Full30, YouTube, wherever you may be consuming this content. I also put a bunch of good deals, like I talked about, coupon codes and sales. My Facebook page is the place to find those, the current ones. And I also send out an email list that you guys can sign up for as well with deals of the week, so you guys can check that out as well. But thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I hope to see all of you in the next video.